all about money. With your host, CPA and forensic accountant, Sam Rosenfarb.
You're watching It's All About Money. Nobody knows more about money than accountants. Hi, I'm Sam Rosenfarb. I'm a forensic accountant. I've been an accountant for over 30 years. I can tell you from firsthand experience that everybody in some way on a daily basis is motivated by money. As a forensic accountant, I've been involved in the startup of hundreds of businesses. I've seen people start with nothing and build their business to be worth millions of dollars. I've also seen businesses worth millions of dollars become worthless. This show is all about educating you, teaching you about how money plays an important role in all of our lives. Businesses are bought and sold every day. Our very strong economy has been fueled by conglomeration and strategic alliances. Enormous wealth has been created by this phenomenal explosion. Some business owners are not realizing their full business potential because they stick to conservative business plans that don't include business acquisitions as part of their game plan. This episode of It's All About Money is about educating you about the business of mergers and acquisitions, or M&A. We have with us two prominent professionals in this highly specialized field. Jeffery Motter is Managing Director of Rosenfarb Winters & Company Mergers and Acquisitions, a company that deals exclusively with mergers and acquisitions. He oversees all client relations in both purchases and sales. Jeff has spent 18 years as a businessman, specializing in sales consulting and marketing, and has used this experience to create a new way to buy and sell businesses. Jeff has the unique ability to put together a marketing plan and a specialized team of advisors to find you the right buyer or seller. Philip Chapman is the senior partner of Chapman, Henkoff, Kessler, Peduto, and Saffer. He graduated cum laude from Princeton University and received his law degree from Harvard Law School. He is recognized as one of the best corporate lawyers in the state of New Jersey. Phil lectures and writes on the subject of mergers and acquisitions. He specializes in counseling family-owned and other privately held businesses in all aspects of business and corporate law, and has turned his focus more recently to the buying and selling of businesses. Phil, when you first started practicing, did you always know that you were going to be involved in mergers and acquisitions?
No.
No? How did you get involved in this?
Well, Sam, over a long period of time, I've been a litigator, a corporate lawyer, a commercial lawyer, a real estate lawyer, a mediator for people who are having disputes, and eventually I decided that I wanted to teach for the Institute of Continuing Legal Education in New Jersey, lawyers at various levels in the area of buying and selling businesses and getting businesses ready. And there's an old adage, when you teach, you learn. And so the more I got into it, the more I assembled co-panelists, the more I realized that this was an area that was really highly specialized, and that I had, with my background being so diverse, I had something extra to bring to the table. So I decided to niche market it, so to speak.
Jeff, how did you get involved in mergers and acquisition?
Well, I've always been a businessman, and I'm very fascinated with all the merger activity taking place. And you talked to me about the possibility of joining your team, and that's how I got here.
Well, why is M&A a buzzword today? What's so exciting about M&A?
Well, the nature of the deals, they're big deals taking place, huge deals. Every time you open the newspaper or turn on the TV, you're seeing these huge mega deals, and there's tremendous opportunities out there for companies to grow and create value by merging with other businesses.
How is value created by merging?
Well, a lot of times you have synergies where the two companies put together create much more value than when they were individual. The sum of the parts is greater than the individual pieces.
Phil, do you only represent large companies or some small companies also?
No, my practice is really businesses that can be small, medium, and growing. I don't really represent Fortune 500 companies. I represent people who have founded their businesses, people who are buying businesses that are in the next stage where they ought to be sold to someone else.
Does it make sense to buy a business or start something new?
Well, it makes much more sense to buy a business because it's easier to buy sales and create sales from scratch. You have distribution channels in place, you have customers, you have cash flow, and it's much easier.
You get to know that a business has already been successful.
Yes.
But most of these successful businesses we read about have been started from scratch. People in the garage. Bill Gates started on his own, right? He didn't buy anything. or Walt Disney, they didn't buy anything, or Coca-Cola, they didn't buy anything. How do you distinguish that from saying that people should buy something?
That's a good question, Phil. What are your opinions on that?
I don't know if I can bite on that as well as you'd like me to, Sam. I don't think it's an abstract exercise. If there's a particular individual who's watching us and trying to figure out whether, with that individual's financial resources and prior experience, and a team they can assemble to work from, they can start from scratch. They have the working capital to weather even conservative assumptions not being proved out. And even if they haven't done the activity before, they believe that they can master the activity quickly enough before they reach the point of no return.
I find my experience as an accountant, most people start out working for somebody and doing something, and then they think that when they've done it as well as they're going to do it for their existing employer, and they think they could do it better, they start on their own. Is it easier for them to buy something? Is it easier for a carpenter to buy a carpenter business or carpentry business, or to start something? Are all businesses available to be sold, bought by a purchaser? What do you think? How should they go about looking for the business that they want? Let's start with that.
I mean, this is going to sound like a commercial for what I don't do. I'm not a business broker, alias business intermediary. But I've become convinced that whether someone is considering selling their business or someone is considering buying a business, that's a special activity in which most people have no prior experience, and even the prior experience of lawyers and accountants has its limitations. So I now believe that someone who is deciding whether to buy a business or start a business, for instance, a franchise business, probably ought to be in the hands of a qualified business intermediary. That term is, by the way, is a more popular term now than business broker, because with business broker, one tends to think of the guy who's selling Evelyn's dress shop.
Do you think of yourself as a business intermediary more than a business broker?
Yes, I think so, because we do a lot more than just the average business broker is selling small businesses, and he's putting an ad in the newspaper or in a journal trying to sell the business, whereas an intermediary will help structure the deal, negotiate the deal.
What is it that your services comprise?
Well, basically what we try to do is put together a marketing plan for the company. If you're trying to sell your business, we try to find a strategic fit for you. And a lot of times
What does that mean, a strategic fit?
Well, we're trying to find a good synergy. Sometimes you may be trying to grow your company, you may lack the resources to capital-wise to grow your business, so we'll find a financial investor that could offer little management experience but lots of capital and let you grow. In other cases, we might find a niche market that neatly fits in with yours that will give you other opportunities to cross-market.
What if I wanted to buy a franchise, a McDonald's or a Wendy's or
I'd like to comment on that.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, I've come to represent a number of people who, often downsized executives or people changing their lives and want to stop what they're doing, who have been looking at franchise businesses. And the reason they've looked at them as opposed to starting up their own business is because in return for the training and for the various forms of support and the prior experience and sometimes the name and trademark and trade dress of the franchise operation, there are all kinds of them, I'll indicate a couple of them, there's a higher chance of success. Having said that, the people who are looking to go into a franchise business have to be guided and helped understand where they belong in the particular type of business. There are one-hour dry cleaners, there's check cashing services, there are
Sure, there's lots
commercial
of
and industrial cleaning services, there is repair and restoration after fire and flood. I could go on and on. There are all kinds of franchise
painting franchises. They're franchise for everything.
Certainly far beyond the fast food and the holiday inns and the ones that are most known. And one of the issues is to do proper investigation and to qualify oneself whether you're really cut out for the particular business.
Well, one of the things I realize in terms of a franchise that makes it so attractive is all the systems are in place. The how to fry the hamburger. You go to McDonald's College. How to fry the hamburger, how long to fry the French fries, what to say to the customer, what uniforms to wear. Whereas if you're buying your own business or creating your own business, you have to create all that yourself.
There are franchise businesses which are being sold. It requires the consent and cooperation of the franchisor. And so someone who doesn't want to do a franchise business from startup may find someone else who has done it for 3, 5, 7, or 10 years, who has enough momentum that there's something to be carried on. And those transactions are special. That's acquisition of a franchise business.
An existing franchise, like existing mailboxes, et cetera, or McDonald's or a Wendy. What do you think about that?
I think it's a wonderful opportunity to buy existing structure. Like in a McDonald's case, they leave nothing to chance.
You were a manager of a few McDonald's.
Yes,
You're familiar with McDonald's franchise.
Yeah, very familiar. As a young man, that was my first job. I was, in fact, the youngest store manager in the history of McDonald's. I was 17 years old and not even graduated from high school, and I got promoted. I did go to Hamburg University, and they teach you every little aspect, from how you greet the customer to how you take out the garbage. They leave nothing to chance, and they've got a proven success formula. But you have to ask.
How do they monitor that? Once the businessman buys the franchise, how does the franchisor then monitor whether or not the business owner maintains those systems in place?
They're all tied into the computers, and they're tied into management visits and accountability.
Yeah, they have what they call field representatives or consultants that come out and they monitor your progress and also help you with questions and little things that come up in the course of the business.
And what if you're not doing a good job? Do they terminate your franchise?
They really have a very selective screening process, and they make sure that you're right for them just as you're making sure that you're right for each other right from the beginning. So you have a good understanding of each other before you even enter into the franchise agreement, in McDonald's case at least.
Is that something you get involved in, buying and selling franchises, or is it more multiple franchises or larger businesses? Or
we sort of concentrate on bigger businesses. There's people that specialize just in franchises, and the areas of franchise law and negotiations are pretty complex.
Phil, do you get involved in franchise acquisitions and franchise sales for those who have yours? Is it specialized? Is it different for you as a lawyer?
I think if you represent someone who's buying a business, whether it's a franchise business or a non-franchise business, that's a special, I'll use the term art form. The person who's thinking of buying a business ought to have an accountant skilled in the buying and selling of businesses, ought to have a lawyer skilled and accustomed to the rhythm of that enterprise, because you can't just pick it up and put it down. You got to stay with it. I think whether it's a franchise business is just a subset, just a special set of details. It's not the main event.
Why are these special skills required for the accountant and the lawyer and even the business intermediary? Why can't the average purchaser go to his regular lawyer, the lawyer who handled his will and handled his house closing? Why isn't that good for him?
I'm not sure I can give you all the whys. I can just tell you it's a practical matter. If I represent a seller or a buyer and the lawyer on the other side is not knowledgeable, the transaction is less likely to succeed and be consummated. It is more likely, even if it goes to the end, to be more expensive. There is more likely to be friction. And there's an adage in this field that the longer it takes to get a deal done, the more fragile the deal is, and the more likely it's not going to go down. If you have people who are not skilled in this field, they may, with raw intelligence and with good intentions, spend an incredible waste of time and even discourage their clients from doing things that make sense because they don't bring experience.
So you think it's less expensive to use a specialist?
Absolutely.
In the long run?
Absolutely. This is not a commercial, just a fact.
No, right. I just, as a matter of educating our viewers, you think that using the person who prepares your will...
Well, let me give you a, God forbid, I'll give you a worse choice. A lawyer who is basically a litigator in his or her soul. Their entire style is combative. They also litigate for a living so that their litigation takes first priority and the business deals get put in the back burner. But when they finally surface and they can be reached, they make every issue of negotiation a win-lose situation. They've got too much riding on it. They become combative on the wrong issues. Their lack of experience in making deals happen and their combative mindset really get in the way, and the business intermediaries and the accountants and lawyers who are in this field cringe when someone like that is involved.
We're going to take just a short break. When we come back, we'll tell you how you can buy or sell a business. Phil Chapman and Jeff Motter. Thanks.
Whoa, what are you doing?
We made a deal. On Monday nights, I watch my shows. Haha, but these are the playoffs.
Go watch them downstairs.
This isn't cable, this is satellite TV. All our sets get the same channels at the same time.
Can't you fix that?
It cost a fortune.
Sorry, deal's a deal.
There's a lot less to satellite television than you think.
I'll do laundry for a year. I'll paint the house, I'll walk the dog every day.
I love this part.
And a whole lot more to cable.
We'll have your mother over for dinner?
Parents have a hard time talking to their kids about sex is because they don't want to let go. That's their little baby.
And I know sometimes it's really hard for parents, and sometimes they're really afraid.
If they can't come to their parents to talk about it, they're going to go to another source and probably get wrong information.
I'm glad that my parents or my mother always told me like where babies came from and about sex. You know, you have to love your kids enough that you're willing to just sit down and talk about some of those tough issues.
Protect your kids from AIDS. Talk with them about sex.
You're watching It's All About Money, and we're talking about how you can make money buying or selling a business. We're talking to Phil Chapman and Jeff Motter. Jeff, right before the break, we were talking about why you need somebody specialized. Why is it important to have a business intermediary in the process?
Well, the business of buying a business in itself is a business, and just as the business owner didn't learn how to run his business and be profitable overnight, the intermediary didn't learn his trade overnight either. It comes by years of experience putting together a lot of different deals. An intermediary has various resources that he can call upon.
What kind of resources?
Well, like he'll have a database of buyers. He'll have a Rolodex of contacts. He'll have a database that tells him what businesses are worth. He has access to the latest valuation methods. They're familiar with the ever-changing tax laws, the environmental regulations, various accounting changes. And we had a situation ourselves where we had a client that tried to sell his business by himself, and he came to us after 2 years, and he was trying to sell with his lawyer and his accountant, and unable to. And after we worked with him for a little while, we were able to put together a professional marketing plan, a program, and help him to sell his business. And his other choice was to liquidate it, and we helped him get substantially more money.
Much more profitable to sell.
Much more profitable.
Sam, I'd like to chime in. They're on the same theme. There are would-be sellers who have already themselves targeted, perhaps even had the most preliminary of negotiations with a buyer or two. And yet some of those sellers have on their own have concluded they want a business intermediary to assist in the negotiations because of the same reasons that Jeff is speaking about, and for one other reason, to be insulated from the negotiations, to have room to change position.
Almost good cop, bad cop.
Something along that line, and not to telegraph sometimes some rather specific reasons. Not everyone is equipped to be a poker player. When I was in the Army, I found out that if I had a good hand, everybody knew it was written in my forehead, and they folded fast. And if I stayed in with a good hand, with a bad hand, it was too long. So I personal experience.
Is every business saleable?
No. No, some businesses are not put in position to be saleable for all kinds of reasons.
What makes them saleable?
Well,
why are some businesses saleable and some not?
Well, it's easier to pick some of the reasons why not.
Okay.
For instance, Sam, if a business had become increasingly dependent on one or two salespeople for a large percentage of the sales, and those salespeople have no bonding to the company, they have no equity, and they have no non-compete agreement. Well, at any one time, a buyer may say, what am I buying here? If the sales force leaves or the main salesperson leaves, I'm missing a large percentage of sales.
Could they rectify that by having non-compete agreements with their employees?
It's hard to get them from existing employees without giving. And it may be that a business person who sees that the business has become increasingly dependent, long before the salesperson starts to ask for an equity position or for some security, some provisions about what happens in case of death or disability, would be well advised to start to fish in those waters and see if as a trade they can get a reasonable non-compete agreement.
What might they give in trade for a reasonable non-compete?
Protections in case of death or disability.
Some
maybe some form of limited annuity that if that person dies or is disabled, that those customers that they generated for some period of time will give rise to future commissions. Maybe not a full commission because they have to be serviced by someone else, but something for the trouble.
Well, what if somebody has a non-compete agreement and wants to leave and compete? Are they enforceable? Can you stop them from?
They're problematic, and the fact that you can't tell if you're the employee who wants to go into business, a financial backer of that employee, a lender, that it's judge-made law made in a whirl of affidavits on a preliminary injunction, that will often dry up the opportunities of that employee to leave and make it too risky.
I see.
And some of
So
the
it's just the litigation process itself may thwart him from leaving.
the fear of losing will dry up the ambition and dry up the money. Those covenants can be broken. They can be defeated. You have to have the staying power. But I can't make a broad statement. Some of it depends on the judge, depends on the scope of the covenant, how the structure of the industry, whether it's really necessary. Those are some of the factors.
Jeff, what does it cost to have a business intermediary?
Well, actually,
What are the fees?
The fees, they vary depending upon the size of the transaction. They can be anywhere from 9 or 10% for a small deal up to 2% on a huge deal.
By the way, the business intermediaries that I know now call them success fees. Yeah. They're contingent fees.
They're contingent on the sale.
Yeah, they're
right?
contingent upon the sale, and also it's a value-added transaction because when you use an intermediary, the price of the business that you're going to be able to get is going to be much greater than what you get on your own, and the timing is going to be much reduced.
How does the business owner know that? How does he know that the selling price is more than he could have gotten on his own? How can we establish that value added to the seller?
Well, we have a team of accountants that you well know that go in and they analyze the financials, they reconstruct them, they look at situations where the businesses will be joined together, they recast the earnings, and we're very creative in finding new ways to enhance value.
Sam, there's one area where both business intermediaries, accountants, and lawyers who are skilled in this area have been able to help. It's bridging the gap. The seller, based upon results to date, has a very firm view of what the business is worth. The buyers today say too much is subject to change. You have no fixed contracts, nothing's for sure, industry won't change, and they often are a significant measure apart. And I've seen the accountants and the business intermediaries and some lawyers deal with a two-tiered price. There's a fixed price payable under sometimes some money down and over a period of time, and then there's a contingent or earn-out price based upon actual results, usually not on profitability. You're more hinged towards a top-line item like gross sales over a period of time. If it's there, if it continues, you'll get some more. That becomes especially attractive, Jeff and I were discussing, where the seller or one or more of the management team of the seller is going to stay on for a few years.
Right, and he gets to be able to control that success fee, that earn-out. I have a client who sold a insurance company to an insurance brokerage company to an insurance company, and he got some of his price in cash and some of his price in an earn-out. Now he's still running the brokerage.
I mention this in connection with what a skilled team, not just Jeff Motter, not just you, not just me, whoever the team is. This is not the kind of approach that the person who's selling their business has ever thought of. And sometimes if the issue arises when the buyer suggests it, they shudder. They hear the cheap and easy wisdom, if it's in or out, you'll never see it, you'll never get it. There's a lot of negativity that floats around, sometimes around creative ideas.
Right, and some of that mindset is real and some isn't. How long does the process take from the time somebody makes a decision to sell a business, assuming, Phil, as you said, the business is saleable? How long does it take to close a deal, to get cash?
There's some subsidiary questions about that. How much, in what good shape is the business when the business person decides they want to sell? How many things have been attended to or not attended to?
What does good shape mean?
Well, it could mean all kinds of things. Have they really looked to see whether they've been liable for sales taxes in various and jurisdictions? Is the real estate accidentally in the operating company as opposed to some separate entity? Have they had good attendance to human resources problems, or do they have a whole bunch of problems that are staring them from their employment practices?
Like what? What kind of problems could they have?
Well, the smaller businesses don't have in-house HR people, right. And in terms of how they hire, how they fire, how they deal with temporary disability, pregnancy leave, whether they investigate claims of sexual harassment, basically whether they're savvy enough to know about the new areas of exposure.
And that could get them in trouble on a sale?
Someone could find, looking at their personnel files and nosing around, that they smell contingent liability. Or even if they haven't
if Harry, the factory foreman, is constantly harassing people, then that could thwart the deal?
Even if the buyer isn't buying stock, they may be buying a workforce in place, and the employment practices history becomes relevant to the day that you own the business and have to deal with people. They can have intellectual property issues that they have not protected, trade names, trademarks, confidential information, failure to have non-competes. I created a survey in connection with a seminar by a prominent New Jersey publication, sort of a checklist for long-range items. Are you ready for the money? Are you ready for financing? Are you ready to be bought? You start now to run your business properly and address those issues, knowing that you do not want to create a situation. I'm going to give you one more that affects timetable, so you won't think I didn't answer your question. You said, how long is it going to take? Well, supposing the business person, whether they own or lease, has never investigated the environmental aspects of the place where they operate. It may be that after they do a phase 1 site assessment, they have to do a phase 2, and now they find out there's some remediation. Well, the buyer may not wait for
That's going to take a while.
For remediation and a sign-off by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. The window of interest or opportunity may be too short. And also, I will tell you, the negotiations at the time of contract are
Do
brutal.
emotions play a role?
Always, emotions always play a role.
People get excited about the buyer and the seller?
Yeah, they both get excited, and the buyer has remorse at some point. The seller has remorse.
I've heard of seller's remorse, buyer's remorse. What does that mean?
Well, whenever you make a deal as a seller, you always think you sold it for too little money, and whenever you agree to buy something, you're thinking you're paying too much, and so you naturally have this little bit of remorse. Oh, I should have asked for some more. I should have given less.
There's another form of remorse. That's because the term, Sam, has lots of applications. I've heard it. What happens when the deal craters because suddenly the seller, who seemed to want to sell, doesn't want to sell?
Changes his mind.
Maybe it was not a decision that, as someone put it, is mutually agreeable to his or her spouse.
Right.
Maybe they looked at their changes.
Spouses do play an important role. It's
Maybe
part of
they're afraid
emotions.
of cabin fever, locked in the condo in Florida.
What am I going to do now? If I sell my business, that's all I've been doing for the last 20 years.
Well,
what am I
lately
going to do?
people are selling younger and going on to other careers or creating new businesses.
Well, there's a whole generation of people that are entrepreneurial in spirit where they can start their own business, but once they've established it, it's not fun for them to run it. And they're great candidates to be sold.
One more form of remorse.
We're out of time. It's been a very interesting program on mergers and acquisitions. I learned a lot. This is Sam Rosenfarb for It's All About Money. If you want to get Phil Chapman's survey on rating your business, write to me, Sam Rosenfarb, Rosenfarb Winters and Company, 101 Eisenhower Parkway, Roseland, New Jersey, 07068, or call me, 973-618-0800. Thanks for watching. Great show. Thanks.
$15 gallons of oil used in the manufacturing process. Until then, I'm Peter Tong. Remember, we live on the good green earth. Let's keep it that way.